Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket is arguably one of the best cinematic depictions of the Vietnam War that exists today. However, I do not believe this is simply due to good characters, story, historical accuracy, or any other stereotypical trait present in good films. Instead, Full Metal Jacket is successful through the way it explores the mental health issues of people, and with current statistics suggesting that 1 in 5 Americans up to the age of 25 suffer from some form of mental illness, it appears that a film about a war which ended over 40 years ago could not be more relevant to the modern day. Today I will be exploring the importance of Full Metal Jacket's representation of mental illness within film, and I will attempt to show how this representation creates insight into the dire state of American mental health issues. When discussing mental health in relation to a film about soldiers, it's easy to argue that the ideas explored within such a film are relative to the soldiers and soldiers alone. In other words, Full Metal Jacket is a film about Marines and therefore can't be used as an example of the mental health conditions of your average Joe. However, the portrayal of Marines within Full Metal Jacket is noticeably different to that of your stereotypical movie Marine. This difference is most noticeable in the physical appearance of the Marines. Very often in films, a Marine is portrayed as an Adonis, with large muscles encapsulating modern ideals of masculinity. However, Full Metal Jacket does things differently, with our characters maintaining the same thin, lanky physique that they possessed from the very first time we're introduced to them in boot camp. Whether this was an intentional decision or not, it makes these particular Marines far more relatable as they appear the same way any civilian would. All soldiers are made to look like normal people, from the intelligent to the not so intelligent. The film constantly hammers home this idea that these are not completely different species, but in fact are like you and me, human. This idea that Marines are fundamentally the same people they were when they were civilians can also be represented in Joker's sense of humour being present throughout the entire film. Therefore, Full Metal Jacket breaks down the barrier between civilian and soldier, showing that mentally, Marines are just as vulnerable as anyone else. So, we've established that soldiers are people too. Now let's look at a specific example, and arguably the most memorable event in the entire movie: the slow mental destruction of Private Pyle. For those of you who haven't seen the movie or need a refresher, Private Pyle is the least intelligent of the group of Marines that we follow, and also happens to be overweight. Throughout the first 45 minutes of the movie, he is verbally abused and ridiculed by his drill sergeant. Pyle's mistakes result in the drill sergeant punishing his fellow privates for his mistakes, resulting in the entire barrack to turn on him, with all of them assaulting him in the night, even his best friend, Joker. After this, Pyle begins his descent into madness, having no friends and developing a talent for shooting. The boot camp sequence part of the film finally ends with Pyle shooting and killing his drill sergeant and then committing suicide. Now, as someone who's never been in the military, I can't say whether or not this is an accurate portrayal of what boot camp is actually like. However, as someone who is about to finish their final year of compulsory education, I couldn't help but notice the similarities the first section of the film shared with the experience one might obtain in a school. It shares the same concepts of teaching what are fundamentally kids, new skills, in the form of Marine training, and shared the same issues of bullying that exists within any hierarchical school structure, with the less intelligent often suffering the worst. And given the current issue of school shootings within America, I think that it's a fair and useful parallel to make between the film and modern society. Of course, I'm not saying that this was Kubrick's intention. Considering its release in 1987, we can pretty much assure ourselves that this film wasn't created as a commentary on the issues of the early 21st century. However, intentional or not, Full Metal Jacket draws very significant parallels between the types of mental issues that face those in the military and those in compulsory education, and these parallels must be pointed out as they can provide insight into our own society, even if only through metaphorical terms. So, as I'm sure you're wondering, what's the point I'm trying to make here? First and foremost, I'm trying to say that Full Metal Jacket is a good film because of its exploration of extreme mental health problems, regardless of my convoluted explanation. Also, I'm trying to say that in a movie market saturated by Michael Bay style action epics and cheap horror flicks, it's important to remember that the best films are the ones that explore the issues of our society, as they are simply the most relatable. And finally, despite my use of metaphors, I believe Full Metal Jacket does show us how tragedies like mass shootings can occur, and how they are often a result of a far more personal experience of individuals. Equally, it shows the way in which our society simply neglects to do anything about the condition of mental health until it is too late, evident by this final scene here.
Leonard talks to his rifle.
Yeah.
I don't think Leonard can hack it anymore. I think Leonard's a Section 8. It don't surprise me. I want to slip my tube stick into your sister.
With all that said, let's use this first half of the movie as a learning experience. Full Metal Jacket shows negative effects things such as extreme bullying can have on someone's mental state. Of course, when mentioning issues such as mass shootings in America, it is easy to jump into a debate around gun laws and restrictions. However, I'd also suggest using this film as a chance to explore the many social issues of our society, the issues that can't simply be fixed by a new piece of legislation. Whether you're a student, teacher, or just another person going about their day, be aware that your actions have consequences on a larger scale than you might be able to perceive. And if you're looking for an example on the kind of consequences I'm talking about, well, I guess we'll just have to go and watch Full Metal Jacket. So I know this week's video has been a bit of a negative one, so I do want to finish by saying that Full Metal Jacket is a really good film, and if you haven't seen it yet, I'd highly recommend doing so if you're prepared to be in for quite an emotionally heavy ride. I'd also like to say I found it quite hard to articulate my ideas within this video, so any feedback would be highly appreciated, and as always, I intend these videos to be the start of a dialogue, so please feel free to leave comments down below, and hopefully I can discuss with some of you guys the content of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, maybe consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys next time.